In today's episode, we're going to be talking to those who, are between the ages of 55 to 75, and they're thinking about generational wealth. They're thinking about passing on money from themselves to their kids, to their grandkids, and they want to make sure that they provide opportunities for their family and their extended family for years to come. And this is something that actually got me into the industry. And so my mentor, she was an advisor for 40 years. And so she saw generational planning by just serving the grandparents and then the kids and then the grandkids. She saw 3 generations of planning that she was able to start to build relationships with over that 40-year period. And so when I heard that, and I heard the lifetime impact that you can have on families and how important that when someone trusts you with their life savings, of how much that means to them and how deep that relationship is, I just was very excited about that opportunity. And so being a younger advisor and our team being a younger team, this is the opportunity that we actually have to serve people for many years to come. We're not just here to serve them and then retire in 5 years, like most advisors where the average age is 56. They may not be working for your entire lifetime. They may not be there to serve the kids and the grandkids and all of that. But that's something that we have and we can say. And then what we're going to talk about today's video is what strategies are out there to make sure that you are doing generational planning. So the first thing is make sure you're working with a team that's going to be able to see and help you live that through. Second thing is, what do we do? And so that's going to be what we talk about on today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
Just think about the impact that you can have through generational wealth. Leaving more money to your kids to make sure your grandkids are taken care of. Leaving more money for your kids so they maybe can retire a few years earlier. Leaving more money for your kids so that they can maybe go start a business, or grandkids can go start a business. There's a lot more opportunities when you have money. Now, if you ask me, money's not everything, right? I think that's where we can get really greedy, and I don't think money means everything to happiness. I think there's a certain amount of money that does bring happiness, but beyond that point, you may not see a lot of happiness beyond that. But you do see happiness up to a certain point, and the reason why is because you won't have to worry. You won't have to worry about opportunities. You won't have to worry about where the next meal is coming from. You don't have to worry about being able to go to the store and buy something that's not on sale. You can go get the car you want, the house you want. You have freedom. And so that's what we're talking about today, is about generational wealth, is providing freedom, providing opportunity to your loved ones. And so we're going to just rattle off a lot of strategies that we're doing with our clients right now to achieve this generational wealth. And the first one I want to talk about is gifting. So gifting can come in handy in many different ways, but the question you have to ask yourself is, do you want to give now while you're living so you can see where it's going? Or do you want to give it all when you pass away? And there's no right or wrong answer there. That's just a question for you to challenge yourself to think about. And if you're thinking, hey, I'd rather give some money now, I feel like the kids could use the money now versus when I pass away, they're probably going to be in their 60s and they may not need the money as much at that point. Whereas if they had it now, they can pay for the grandkids, college, they can start saving for any big expenses that may come up, like a new house or a new car, setting themselves ahead of the schedule, or maybe saving more for the retirement with some of that money that you can gift them now. So you have to decide that for you. But what we see with a lot of our clients is they see value in doing so. And if they can make sure that their kids use it in the right ways, I think they're pretty excited about that if they have enough saved up where they're not worried about their own retirement, right? The first step here is we have to make sure that we're taken care of. And if we are, and we have excess, like most of the clients we work with, now we can start looking at more advanced planning for this generational wealth. So understand that we are talking to those people today in this video who have been diligent savers. We call them the Midwestern Millionaire. Those with Midwestern values, where they're very family oriented. They want to take care of their family. They're very hardworking. They're very frugal. They're the best savers, but the worst spenders typically. That's who we're speaking of today. So if you have $1 million or more net worth, then these types of strategies are where it really starts to be implemented. And so right now you can actually give each child per spouse $18,000 per year. So if you have 2 kids and you're married, you can give $36,000 to one child and $36,000 to the other child, and that's just for this year. And so you could get $72,000 off of your books, and we'll talk about where that can become important when it comes to estate taxes, which we'll talk about later in the video. But understand that this is a way that you can not only start giving it now, but also it could be beneficial from a tax standpoint than just leaving all the money when you pass away if you've built up significant wealth. So we're going to come back to that point on estate tax here during the video. Another reason why gifting it now can make sense is so they can start to fund a Roth IRA. So maybe they're already doing that out of their own dollars, but this is a way that you can help them redeploy that money or do something different with this money, or they can max out the Roth 401k. So, not every person is putting $30,000 into their Roth IRA, 20 to 30,000 depending on how old they are, and also maxing out the Roth IRA. Where if they're not, give them enough money to shore up that difference so they can start taking advantage of that opportunity, and that's going to leave your dollars being best used, because you may not be able to put money into the Roth anymore if you're not working. You can maybe do a Roth conversion, but maybe you can't contribute to a Roth, and so this is a way you can start to transfer money. Maybe you just have some money in a taxable investment that you have to pay capital gains on or ordinary income tax on. You can reposition it into a tax-free bucket that maybe not be for your use, but maybe for the greater good of the family would be where that opportunity comes in from. And so we see a lot of our clients doing that for their child, especially if they're right out of college. They're not necessarily making the most money to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. This is where they can start doing that, to start building up that savings, to really see the value of compound interest moving forward. And so, a lot of these strategies, you're going to have to really make sure your kids are being diligent savers themselves and just not squandering the money. But if you're going to force them to put in their Roth and they do that, well, then there's not much that they can do there. Now, with a Roth IRA, they could take the money out, but with a Roth 401k, it's pretty much locked up there. If they take it out, they're going to have to pay a penalty. And so those are the considerations to look for there. Another consideration that a lot of our clients do for a generational planning strategy is put money into a 529 plan. So typically a 529 has always been used just for college. Well, nowadays you can use it for many different types of educational reasons, and so you can do research online to see what you're trying to use that money for, and you can see what opportunities are out there. And so the other consideration though with a 529 now is if you have it open for 15 years, then any money in that 529, not all of it, but up to $35,000 can get transferred into a Roth IRA over a certain amount of years for that beneficiary's a Roth IRA. And so that could be a way that you're getting extra money to the Roth if they don't use it for college. And so if one of your goals is I want to make sure they all go to college, we'll have that out there. But as we all know, college isn't always the answer. I mean, there's plenty of jobs out there where they can still make great money, even six figures, and not have to have a college degree. And so if they don't want to go spend all that money on college, they can still make sure it's repositioned in a fruitful way for them. But also, generational wealth, you can just transfer that 529 to a different beneficiary and not have to pay taxes, and now maybe their kids can use that. Or maybe one of their cousins or siblings could use it, or even their parents could use it. Anyone can use it that's related to them in that strategy. So a way you can really put a lot of money in there to get the tax-free benefits. And a 529, it typically works like a Roth, right? And so you put your money in after tax, and then if you use it for college, it's tax-free. All that growth is tax-free. So it could be an extra way to save and a tax preferential treatment for those families that are looking for that. Another opportunity that we see is life insurance. Now, this is one that you want to do your research on, your due diligence on, and there's many different ways you could set this up. Many people think of life insurance as, hey, let's make sure I get life insurance so that my family's protected, to make sure they have enough money if I pass away and I don't have any income from my job anymore. Well, that's one use of life insurance. The other use that we see with people who have been diligent savers, Midwestern millionaires we've been talking about, is to transfer wealth. And one of the key reasons why is because life insurance is tax-free when you pass away. So if you put $100,000 into this life insurance policy, and let's say it gets to a point when it pays out $300,000 when you pass, that $300,000 to your beneficiaries is tax-free. And so that's going to be advantageous if you want to leave wealth to your kids, for example, in a tax preferential way. Maybe they're in a higher income bracket at that point when they receive this money. That could be some money that they can use towards their planning or use for something different. That's just a lump sum without any taxes associated with it. So that's one way. But again, generational wealth, if you're even trying to provide wealth not only for your kids but for your grandkids, maybe you go out and get life insurance policies for your kids. And then they can make sure that their kids are taken care of if something happens to them. And so, again, life insurance isn't for everyone. Again, you have to be insurable for it, but also you have to see what type of insurance do you want, right? There's whole life, there's universal life, there's indexed universal life. You need to do your research to see what is the actual policy that you want that's going to provide the features and benefits that you're looking for. So we'd recommend you work with an insurance licensed advisor to help you with that. And just, FYI, I would highly recommend that you don't just only work with an insurance only licensed advisor, because they're probably just going to try to sell you the insurance without seeing how it fits into your total plan. I'd work with a certified financial planner or a team of financial planners to making sure that how does insurance build into the plan here, right? So we call it our 5-pillar approach that we personally do, that we do all areas of financial planning all in one place. So all of our advisors are insurance licensed, so that if our client needs life insurance or wants life insurance, we don't have to send them to the insurance salesperson down the street. We can do it in our house. We can shop it out to make sure they get the right policy. We can make sure they get the right type of life insurance so they can maximize their plan. If an advisor doesn't offer insurance, well, then are they really doing comprehensive planning is something that I've always questioned, right? So again, working with a team who can do it all in one place, now you're not going to have to worry about retelling your story to someone else or retelling the plan to someone else who may not fully understand it. So that's where life insurance can come into handy. And then there's another reason where, that can also benefit you from an estate tax standpoint, which again, I told you and promised you we'll talk about here next. And so with estate taxes, this is where if your net worth is to a certain degree, you may have to pay an additional tax when you pass away. Now, estate tax has been something that people are not necessarily as concerned about right now because the limits are so high. But if you look back in time, in just 1997, the estate tax limit was $600,000, and the tax rate was 55%. And then in 2001, it was $1 million at 50% tax rate. So let me just use an example. If we were in 2001, if your estate was $2 million and you had $1 million above that $1 million limit, right? You'd have to pay a 50% tax on that extra $1 million. You'd have to pay $500,000 in federal estate tax. You'd have to pay up to around that amount for that year. That is a significant amount of taxes that you could potentially pay by just having wealth. Now, could the estate tax limit go back down to what it was in 1997 or 2001? It can. The tax code is written in pencil. Do we expect it to? Maybe. I mean, tax rates right now are, they're expecting everything to go up because we're $35 trillion in debt. We know that in 2026 the tax rates are going up due to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expiring. We do know that Social Security and Medicare is underfunded. We do know that the country needs more revenue. So these are all ways that they can do it. And as you know and have read, they're coming off after the wealthy. They're coming after the high income. Well, if you have $1 million or more, you could be in the top 10% in the entire country in net worth. If you have 2.5 million or more, you're probably in the top 5% net worth in the country. I can say that they're probably going to be coming after you. And so that's where you're going to have to start worrying about estate tax, maybe not now, but in the near future, if you are that Midwestern millionaire that we've talked about. And so this can be pretty significant. And so the good news is there's strategies and planning that we can start to do now to prepare for this. And a lot of it has to do with, setting up more advanced estate planning documents, like a trust, for example. And there's many different types of trusts that we'll give you a good understanding of here today. But also through the gifting strategy, right? If we give $18,000 a year, like I talked about, that's going to allow us to hide that $18,000. I shouldn't say hide because that sounds mischievous and that we're trying to do something illegal. It allows you to just basically take advantage of that limit, and that's not going to count towards your estate tax limit that you have. And so that's the amount of estate tax-free money you can gift each year. So maybe that's a strategy. But maybe you also want to leave money behind when you pass, and you may find yourself above that estate tax limit that we've been talking about. And if so, then you can set up a type of trust that's called an irrevocable trust, that you have to be very careful with this because, again, irrevocable means you can't have access to it. So you probably don't want to put all your money in this trust. But maybe you put a portion of your assets where you're not expecting to use it to ensure that that amount of money is out of your estate and not subject to that 50% estate tax or that 40% estate tax or whatever it may be when you pass away. So that's one strategy or one idea. But also, we talked about the life insurance benefit. Well, you can also set up something called an irrevocable life insurance trust. That's where you take the life insurance policy, that $300,000 death benefit, you put it into an ILIT, and now that is not subject to estate tax if you set it up the correct way. And so if you're already planning on passing that money to your loved ones when you pass anyways, well, what's the matter if it's outside of your estate if you don't plan to take the cash value or use any of it now? Just get it out of the estate and make sure that it's, not subject to that high tax rate potential down the road. So those are all ideas, and those could all avoid the estate tax on a portion of your assets. But also, what about generation skipping, right? Generational wealth, as we're here to talk about. If you set up a trust that maybe it goes directly to your grandkids and not your kids, well, you don't have to worry about the estate tax issue for your kid's lifetime. Yes, you may avoid the estate tax by setting it up the right way from you to your kids, but now your kids have to do it again. They have to plan and maybe get a trust or do something different to make sure that they protect it from their kids as well. Well, what if you just left it to the grandkids and now you don't have to worry about anything in between? You may be able to kick this can down the road for potentially planning for another estate tax situation for another 50 years or so, depending on the age of the grandkids. So that's something else that we've seen has been a benefit, that maybe the kids don't need their money. Maybe they're making a high income, they've got enough money, you've been gifting to them every year, you do have a substantial saved up. Maybe you do look at something like this generational transfer type trust, or do something to really be more strategic about how you're going to transfer your wealth. And maybe that gifting that I talked about earlier, maybe you do that for your grandkids as well, and start to do all the different strategies that we talked about here today. So hopefully these are helpful and just getting your brains turning. Again, it's hard for these Midwestern millionaires to think of these strategies because, again, they thought of all their years is save, 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 save. But now we're to a point where we can't take all this wealth with us. We know we're probably not going to spend it all. We have to start thinking about what we're going to do with it. And there's no better time than right now so that you can make sure you get the most purpose out of your money and get to do what you want to do with it. Whether that's giving it away to your kids, maybe it's given to a charities. Heck, maybe it's spending more of it, right? Going on more trips, doing more big parties, right? Whatever it may be to give you that joy you're looking for is what our encouragement is for you. So just want to challenge you to think harder about this. If you're working with a financial planning team, making sure they're having these conversations with you and thinking ahead. Because if we get 20 years from now and we look back and say, wow, I wish we would have done some planning earlier, well, you can't get that time back. And so that's why right now is the most important time. This isn't something we can procrastinate. Anything can change at any time, but also all the strategies I talked about today, if we wait until next year to do them, we miss 1 year of opportunity to take advantage of them. We missed opportunities of the limits that we discussed, and we missed the opportunity for compound growth in some of these vehicles. And so that's why we want to try to get started on things earlier rather than later, right? It's the importance of proactive planning versus being reactive. And so that's my advice there. But also, again, work with a team who's going to be here. I started the video off with this, but I just want to conclude with it. Work with a team that's going to be there with you moving forward. If you're confident that the team you're working with, that they can serve you for many years and they've got the team in place to do so, then great. That's what I'm ultimately encouraging you of. But maybe your advisor is about to retire. Maybe they're the same age as you. Are they going to be able to keep you going down the line and also be there to help you transfer assets to your loved ones in the way that you wanted to see done? Do they have someone that on their team that if they do retire is going to help you take over, that you feel confident in? Those are all the considerations that we'd expect you to ask. And I'll tell you a story of a client who actually decided to work with us, and I tell this story quite often because it's pretty powerful and it means a lot to me. But he had been working with an advisor for 20 years, and he's a close friend at this point. And he decided to leave that advisor to work with us. And I asked him, I said, that's obviously a big decision. What allowed you to make that decision, or what made you want to make that decision? He said, well, two things. He said, one, you're bringing up strategies and idea that my advisor just hasn't brought up. He's not necessarily experienced. And he actually said something there. He said he has 20 years of experience, but I'm convinced he may have 1 year of experience 20 times because he doesn't do comprehensive planning, he just does investment management. He's been doing the same thing over all the years. So he really hasn't seen a lot of complexity. He's not innovative, right? And then the second reason why he said they decided to work with us ongoing is because of our age. He said, you're going to be here for our entire retirement, and you're also going to be here for our kids' retirement and be there to see that transfer of wealth to make sure it gets done easily, gets done in an efficient way, and gets done based on what our goals are and what we're trying to achieve. And in case you've first time watching one of these videos, I do have a bit of a sense of humor, so much that I wrote a book called I Hate Taxes, which I don't like taxes, but, I don't mind paying my fair share. I just don't believe the government's being the best steward of our money, as a side note there. But I joked with him and I said, hey, look, we'll actually probably be here for your grandkids too. And we'll be able to see that 3-generational planning that I've been talking about here. And when I first started the firm here, Peak Retirement Planning, I considered calling it something to do with generational planning. Because that's what we're here to do, and there's not a lot of advisors out there that can say that right now, because the average age is 56 of an advisor. So anyways, with all that being said, hopefully this video is helpful for you. But if you are looking for the type of planning that we've been talking about here, and you want to look for finding a team that can serve you ongoing, feel free to schedule a time with us. We'd love to have a conversation and talk further. We have a lot of people who reach out to us from our YouTube channel here or our podcast. And so we'll just have a quick 15-minute call, see where you're at, and see if we can help. And if so, we can explore further. And if not, we can see how we can help set you up for success there. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and sign off on this one. But make sure you're being a good steward of your money and getting it to see where you want it to go.